Well, good morning. I hope your day is off to a good start. In last November's election, a new representative joined the UP delegation in Lansing. Today we're going to talk with him about how that new assignment is going and other developments in the state capitol. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, in the last election campaign, the 108th district seat in the Michigan House of Representatives was open as Ed McBroom, the incumbent, was term limited. That district includes Delta, Dickinson, and Menominee counties. After a spirited campaign, Republicans retained control of that seat with the election of Bo LaFave. Representative LaFave is our guest this morning. Welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Thank you very much for having me back.
And I say back because you were here during the campaign.
Yeah, I'm surprised you wanted me back, but I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you back. Just for those folks who aren't familiar with you, Kingsford High School graduate, I believe?
Yes.
Flivver?
Yeah. So I did, I got out of Kingsford in 4 years, and I went off to Michigan State, got my degree in international relations and political economy, did that in 4. And then I did a year at Wayne State University Law School before entering the campaign.
And you kind of had a change of direction then when you decided to get involved in politics.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and now I'm a lawmaker. So a lot of the problems I saw in law school, I'm getting to look at now. And we haven't addressed too many of those yet, but it's definitely interesting looking at it from another perspective.
When we talked last time during the campaign, you said one of the reasons you got involved was you saw too many young people leaving the area, lack of jobs, lack of opportunity. How are you feeling about that issue now?
Well, it's still a concern. I mean, it's still one of my main concerns. I think that Michigan needs to be better able to retain jobs, bring new jobs here, and train our students that are interested in a field, especially one that's hiring. We need to be able to make sure that they can get the education that they need to get a job in welding or construction or automotive repair. So I'm still working on the education aspect of it, and we're working on making sure that taxes can get lowered in Michigan and make it a more friendly environment for people to live.
Okay, we'll talk about some of those issues. First of all, though, you were successful, and now you've had about 4 months under your belt. How are you feeling about your new assignment?
I am just incredibly honored and blessed to have this position. I can't thank the voters enough who went out and voted. Maybe not for me, but we had a great turnout in this last election, and I appreciate those that took a chance on me, because it was a risk, and I acknowledge that there were a lot of people that didn't, and I appreciate them voting as well. I hope that I earn the support of everybody in my district in the Upper Peninsula.
Has Lansing been what you expected?
I did spend 4 years at Michigan State in East Lansing, and I did a couple of I did an internship over in the capital area. It's not substantially different than I imagined it would be.
Okay. Have you found the legislature to be a welcoming place?
It is, and for me, it definitely is. My colleagues on the right or left side of the aisle have been nothing but nice to work with. We don't agree on every issue, and that's okay. But there's never been a moment where I felt that I was being, picked on because I was a Youper or because of my age.
You, being a state legislator is really no different than, well, it's very different. But my point is, each job you have to kind of learn the ropes. Where do you feel you are in that process?
I'd love to tell you I learned every single issue, and that I know more than anybody else down there. But the simple fact of the matter is that I have colleagues that have served in the legislature for 4 years longer than I have. And they know a lot of issues. I'm catching up. I'm getting there. I think that I certainly have a handle on a lot of issues, specifically no-fault insurance reform. And that issue was one of my number 1 priorities, so I got caught up to that as quickly as humanly possible. Now we're working on energy, because I'm on Insurance and Energy Committee. And as far as, Second Amendment issues, there wasn't any catching up to do on that. Well, was already pretty good to go with that.
And I don't know if our audience thinks about it, but as a legislator, you're really pulled in so many directions. You have your own beliefs. You certainly have the beliefs of your constituents. You have the UP delegation you have to get along with, and you have to get along with your party. I mean, it's important, isn't it? How do you balance all of those demands?
I think it comes down to me, the first thing I always examine is conscience. And then after that, it's the people of my district. And fortunately, for me, I'm from an area where my conscience and the concerns of the people that put me in office don't differ on almost anything. I can't think of a specific issue where constituents want me to do something by and large, and then I don't want to do that. So it's kind of convenient and nice. And then yes, you know, I need to get along with my party and the Democrats as well, because I wasn't elected governor, and even if I was, I'd still need to get along with the legislature to get anything done. So, you know, I have over 100 colleagues that I work with in the House and Senate combined. It's 150 of us that run the government.
Some of the downstate pundits have made a point that they don't feel this legislature has been very active yet. How would you react to that?
Well, I can see why they might say that based on the number of bills that have passed, and I am a bit disappointed that we haven't gotten to some very important issues yet. But I'll tell you, we could have came in and done what a lot of legislatures have done in the past and found that low-hanging fruit and, you know, got bills out quickly and sent them over to the Senate and get it signed by the governor. But my opinion is that we've kicked the can down the road a long time on a lot of these issues, like no-fault insurance in Michigan. And it's time that we tackle the big issues, lowering taxes for every Michigander. And we need to get to those, so it's going to take a little bit longer than usual. Okay,
we'll come back and talk about those issues in just a minute. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take a break. Again, our guest this morning is State Representative Bo LaFave, talking about what's happening in Lansing. Let's talk about the fact that when Republicans came, and you're in the majority party, but when your leadership came into this session, they were pretty gung-ho about reducing and eliminating the state income tax. And the governor opposed it, and they didn't have enough votes to do it. Where does that issue, first of all, stand right now?
Well, full disclosure, I was with my colleagues on that vote. I voted yes to reduce the income tax rate from 4.25 down to 3.9% over a 4-year period if we had $1 billion in the rainy day fund. I did vote yes to do that. Now we're in the budget process, and the governor has slated an increase in spending, and I'm of the belief that we did okay last year on a lot of things. Now we need increases in some places and decreases in others. But if we can give that money back to the people and not let the government grow bigger and bigger and bigger, it would be beneficial to the Upper Peninsula.
Well, what would you say to people who say, well, look, this is going to adversely affect schools and universities and communities and key programs if the state loses all that revenue?
Well, I don't think we're going to lose all of the income tax revenue because there's no plan to replace that yet. I'll let you know if it changes.
Okay.
But I don't want to see schools lose any money. We need to make sure our roads get reinvested in, and we need to make sure that our police and vital services like that are also maintained. But there is an 11% increase in state government over the last, I believe it was 8 or 10 years. And we need to make sure that the people that send us to office realize that we don't just want to, I don't want to just take that money and find other projects to spend it on. We need to rein in the spending and make sure that the schools are adequately funded and the roads are adequately funded.
There was a report this week that a Senate committee, and I know you're not in the Senate, but they had cut funding for a program that provides food and heat for the poor. Now, you know, are Republicans going to be identified as not being concerned about those who have needs, you know, if these tax cuts are put into place?
You know, I did not hear that report, and I haven't seen that specific line in the budget, but I think that, at least as far as I'm concerned, there are very vital programs out there that we need to keep funding because we need to protect the most vulnerable individuals, people with disabilities, the young, the old, the sick, and we need to make sure that We aren't branded as people that don't care, because that's just not true.
I know one of the issues you've really been involved with is this matter of sanctuary cities. Tell us first of all what is the issue so the audience understands.
So a sanctuary city is, there's no actual definition, but I have a definition in mind. A sanctuary city would forbid their officers from checking the immigration status of an individual they come in contact with, or if they find an individual who's here illegally, they'd be sanctioned or not allowed to report them to ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Okay, and you're very much opposed to this.
I think that it's a bad public policy to tie our law enforcement's hands behind their back, and you and I and me and my colleagues can have a discussion as to whether or not an individual whose only crime is to be here illegally ought to be reported. That's a reasonable discussion to have. What I don't think is reasonable is to say that we've got an individual who committed a felony in another country, is a violent person, and then came here illegally. Well, if they've been convicted of a violent felony and then came to our country illegally, I think that person should be deported. And sanctuary cities fly in the face of public safety and just tie our law enforcement's hand behind their back, because they have discretion. But under a sanctuary city, they can't get rid of a bad guy.
And you've actually put forth legislation on this matter.
Yeah, I did. It would have yanked the funding for, well, first part of the bill says that sanctuary cities are illegal. And the second part of the bill says that if a local unit becomes a sanctuary city, they would lose all tax dollars constitutionally allowed to be withheld to that individual municipality.
One of the issues that just won't go away is the so-called big box store taxing issue. The House actually passed a bill last year, the Senate didn't. Is it coming back this year? Does it have some chance of success? And for the people watching, it really means that some of these large stores are taxed as if they're vacant when they aren't.
Yeah, and it's slightly a little bit more complex than that as well.
Right.
But it did pass the House in a very overwhelmingly bipartisan manner. I want to say it was 97 to 11. And it was a good bill last year. The reintroduced version is a good bill this year. Where is it going is a tough question to answer. I believe that with the 53 co-sponsors, you need 55 to get it out of the House, that we could probably get that out of the House again. The issue is in the Senate. And I've had some private conversations. It doesn't look promising with that bill right now.
Okay.
So I've got another way of tackling the issue that I can't exactly give details on right now, but if that bill can't pass, well, I might as well let the cat out of the bag. I've got a bill that says, since we can't do the reform, why don't we at least reimburse locals for the loss of revenue? And I think when my colleagues see how much money that actually is, that there's a chance that we can move the conversation a little bit farther down the field when we see the numbers of how big of a problem it really is.
Could be an eye-opener. Back with some more questions in just a couple of minutes. Right now, a pause for these commercial messages. We're talking with State Representative Bo LaFave. You know, one of the issues you've mentioned, and let's get some more detail on that, because Michigan certainly has some of the highest insurance rates in the country, is the cost of auto insurance in Michigan, and particularly because of the no-fault insurance plan. Where would you like to go with this?
Well, to illustrate the issue about the high cost of auto insurance, in Iron Mountain you could insure a home for $100,000 of coverage for about $450 a year. But I have an 03 Monte Carlo out in the parking lot, and it cost me for 1 year of insurance on that $1,450. So now obviously it's not the same thing. I'm not driving my house down the highway, but Michigan has the third most expensive auto rates in the country, and our friends south of the border in Wisconsin and Ohio get to fight about who's third and fourth cheapest. So when some people say it's expensive in Michigan because of the ice and the deer, well, Wisconsin's got more deer and Ohio's got more ice. So it's the laws and it's the bureaucracy and the government that's in the way of lowering those prices.
And yet, no fault has done some good things in Michigan, hasn't it?
Yeah, you know, the premise of no fault is that, you know, we don't have to litigate issues. You know, if somebody gets hit on the road, we don't have to go into court, and there's additional costs to that drive up insurance rates. But so no fault might not be the problem. The problem we have is it's mandated that everyone gets unlimited medical coverage. I have good health care that I pay for. If I wanted to have no medical coverage on my auto insurance, I could get health insurance that would pick up any leftover medical issues. In Michigan, if you're collecting Medicare, you're on Medicare as a senior, in every other state in the union, eventually Medicare would start paying for any accident or any cost because of an injury in an auto accident. In Michigan, never will our seniors get paid, reimbursed from Medicare because in an auto accident, because we have unlimited medical coverage. It's the only state in the union that does that.
Okay, time is short, but is it likely something will happen this year in the legislature?
I would be very, very surprised if we don't see 10 bills come forward trying to fix this. And one of the problems we've had in the past is that we wanted to pass one big bill to fix it all, and it's got 10 things in there, and everybody's got a problem with one of them, you know, a different part of it. So my opinion, and the opinion of many of the members on the insurance committee, is let's do 10 bills and pass them individually, and that way we can get, you know, 9 out of 10 are going to like 9 out of 10 of them. And if they don't like one, well, they can vote no on it, but it's still going to get through. So I would like to see as many bills go through on auto no-fault insurance reform as possible, and I'm going to be introducing a few myself, I hope soon.
We have only a couple of minutes, but I know you're very interested in education. There's almost kind of a competition going on. We have STEM and CTE. STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math, in most cases being degreed subjects, and CTE focusing more on non-degree. But they're both valuable, aren't they?
Absolutely, and for some, STEM is more important, and for others, CTE is more important. The problem when you have Lansing dictating what's going on in Menominee or Iron Mountain is that what works for Detroit doesn't always work for Kingsford. So I think it's very important that we focus on career technical education, because we have wonderful manufacturing jobs in the Upper Peninsula that pay well. You know, EMP, Boss Snowplow, I know it's in Marinette, but Marinette Marine pays good, has good wages for welding and a lot of other jobs. So I have a House Bill 4106 that would allow an individual to go to a business and get an internship, and they would just get an elective credit, you know, as opposed to going to a band or a chorus class. And I like band and chorus. I did it for 6 years, or for a band and 2 of chorus. So there's merit to band and chorus, but if an individual so chooses to learn how to weld at a local business, why wouldn't they be able to do that? And the government's in the way on that one.
So I think the state has been stepping aside some, haven't they, making some adjustments, and
yeah.
For a while there it was pretty strict as far as what high schools had to offer.
Yeah, we just had a 4-bill package that I co-sponsored that made it a little bit easier. Instead of taking Algebra 2, now you can take statistics and a few other things like that. So we're making it a little bit more flexible, and my bill is part of the overall discussion that we're having on that. I just think that if we can't afford to have a welding and a shop class and an automotive repair and computer information technology classes in the high schools, because that costs a lot of money, well, why don't we let the businesses that would hire the individuals show you what it's like to work in their field, and if you like it, great, but if you don't like it, I'm really glad you found that out in high school instead of getting a 4-year degree in something you don't want to do for the rest of your life.
It seems like we've only scratched the surface here, and I have a lot more questions, but not a lot of time. We'll have to have you back again when you get a few more months under your belt and see what's happening in the state capitol.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'll be back with some other thoughts for you after we take a break. A woman died recently who was 117 years old. She was born in the 1800s. And the people who study such things say there is someone living today who will live to be 150. Chances are it's not one of us. It's most likely that person is just a very young kid today. Have you ever stopped to think about how different our lives have become when compared with what they were for previous generations? Back in the 1800s, for example, one of the things that popped into my head was the effort and activities we go through to become physically fit. We have problems with obesity, bodies out of shape, and as someone once said, it just feels like you're get up and go, got up and left. So today a lot of people are obsessed with exercise. Not that that's a bad thing. But have you looked around your community lately? We have more gyms, fitness centers, and places designed to get our out-of-shape bodies fit and trim than we ever had. It's also pretty common today to drive down the street and see people running, jogging, walking, and bike riding. I'm a walker myself. Again, none of this is bad, but it is a reminder of how physically unfit some of us have become. Can you imagine in the pioneering days of the country when a cowboy was headed for the chuck wagon after a hard day rounding up cattle, turns to his partner and says, "What do you think, Bob? Want to play a little handball tonight?" Or the farmer coming in from the fields after a hard day of planting or harvesting, can you imagine him saying to his wife, "Think I'll go for a run after dinner?" And his wife didn't have it all that easy either. After a day of washing clothes by hand down by the creek, she's probably not going to be heading for an evening at the gym. Can you imagine what someone from the 1800s would think if we told them we now must find ways to keep our bodies in shape? In fact, oftentimes we pay a fee to have someone work with us or to be able to use the workout equipment. This is not an indictment of those who work to help us. It's an indictment of what we have become. The pioneers worked physically hard just to survive. It was a far cry from what most of us do today. And I say most of us because there are still people who are working physically hard every day. It's clear that for most of us, though, our day jobs just aren't going to keep us physically fit. We need to find some way of exercise. So let's close with a couple of thoughts on exercise from, well, first, unknown sources. One said, "When I was younger, I looked forward to getting up early in the morning to exercise. Now, getting out of bed in the morning is my exercise." Or, you know that you're out of shape when you can't pull the supermarket shopping carts apart. And Ellen DeGeneres is credited with this comment, "I really don't think I need buns of steel. I'd be happy with buns of cinnamon." Words to live by. I'll be back in a minute. We're only moments away from the Today Show, so it's time for us to wrap it up for another week. Keep in mind, if you missed the show, want to see it again, or recommend it to someone else, it is available on the internet at uppermichigansource.com. Most of our past shows are already there, and today's edition will be available starting tomorrow afternoon. Thanks to State Representative Bo LaFave for joining us today with an update on the latest from the state capitol. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you again next Sunday morning.